got a lot of things that we've been covering for a long time kind of coming to an end, and then you start to look forward to some other things, like you're kind of in that in-between time. I had someone stop me yesterday in the grocery store, and they're like, hey, love the show, love the channel, always listen. He's like, but like I feel like every show's kind of talking more football at this point than y'all have been talking. I said, well, I think that's a good thing. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you have no controversies going on. You have a good roster coming back. You don't have a quarterback battle. You have a healthy quarterback room, and everything is going in the right direction. I said, so if you feel like we haven't, it's because we have not, because there's not a lot on that bone. There's not a lot of meat there. So, yeah, you're right. But as we sit here waiting for the spring game, the narratives, because you have, 37 lettermen coming back. You have 27 players that started at least one game coming back. Like, you just haven't – you got both coordinators coming back, and so that's one of the main reasons why you don't have, deep dives into spring football, because there's not a lot out there, and I think that is a very good thing.
Yeah. Have you – they mean other shows in the station have been talking about spring football?
No. They said – the channel hasn't been talking a lot of spring football.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it is by far the Jake's right. It's almost like an eternal football rule. If your spring is not interesting, that's generally a good thing, because that means that you don't have a lot of question marks. And this team does not have a lot of question marks. I have one spring thing written in my notes. I was reading Wilson Alexander's practice report from day 8, and Greg Brooks was in a boot, which meant that your safeties were Major Burns and Sage Ryan, and they had Toviano rep with the ones at nickel.
Yeah,
for whatever that's worth. They're mid-year enrollee freshman who just stepped on campus, getting 1 reps with the nickels. Now, to be completely fair, it's hard to say exactly how this cornerback and defensive back room in general is going to shake out, given that many of the bodies you're going to have you don't have here yet. But still, a credit to Toviano nonetheless.
It feels like he's going to play.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime we have Brody or anybody that covers the team on, they talk about him and how he's repping with the ones and kind of getting in the rotation there. So, yes, if that is the storyline that you read, that was maybe the biggest one in there, again, kind of confirms what we're talking about. And that's a good feeling. That's a good place to be in. When you talk to people on the outside, they're excited about this LSU team. They think this LSU team can challenge for a national championship. This is going to be the first year that you go into an SEC media days where LSU might actually be the vote in the West.
Yeah.
Now, it's going to be close, but if you went last year, 2 years ago, even after 2019, it was still going to be Alabama. So all things right now are pointing to having a major season.
Well, I mean, look, it should be objectively, if you're an alien observer coming down and we laid out the facts of the teams in front of you, you would choose LSU to win the West. But you're not an alien observer, and so you've seen the power and consistency of Nick Saban and Alabama firsthand. And so, if Alabama does win the vote come SEC Media Days, they are trading on their past, which is good. I mean, which is well-earned, right? Because time and time again, we've seen Alabama look a little shaky before the season and in terms of roster, right? And then everybody comes together and they remind us that, no, we have all blue-chip players and we don't, what is it? We don't replace, we reload or whatever, or rebuild. We don't rebuild, we reload. And so.
But this quarterback, so when you look at.
The quarterback situation is not good for them.
It's wild. When you look at 3 teams that might be the 3 teams with the best odds to win a national championship in Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia, they've got quarterback questions. Now, they feel like they've got guys in position, and it's all guys that they recruited fighting for those jobs. Now, and we've seen Milroe from Alabama. We haven't really seen anyone else from the other schools outside of garbage time. But those 3 schools, they didn't do a deep dive into the portal when you had Devin Leary and Brennan Armstrong and Sam Hartman and all these quarterbacks. They said, we'll trust our high school recruiting. We're going to let them battle it out, and that's who we're going to choose. And so you have questions because you might feel really good about who wins that job, but still it's not a proven commodity like you've had in the past.
I want to say that Georgia pursued Leary. I could be getting my storyline wires crossed here, but that he ended up not choosing Georgia, which makes sense. I mean, when you look at the Georgia quarterback situation, not they have anybody necessarily overwhelming or great, but if I'm an upperclassman, I need to go somewhere where the job is going to be promised to me, essentially, if I'm Devin Leary. And that is not the case at Georgia. And if you would get beat out by a Leary or Vandergriff, you would just be stuck riding the bench with that Bulldog team. So, yeah, the 3 best, most talented teams in the country don't have quarterbacks. That's a recipe for a chaotic football season. So if Alabama gets chosen first at SEC Media Days, it's because of what they've done in the past, and it's well-earned. I don't mean that as a slight. Like, I completely understand it if that's the way that the media ends up going. But objectively, I do think that Brian Kelly has the best team in the SEC West entering year 2, which is really a fascinating thing to stop and think about. The year 2 hype continues for these new hires, right? Of course, Coach Mulkey just hanging a banner. Jay Johnson, now 3-0 in SEC series against all very good teams, and the top 10 one coming up this weekend and ranked number 1 in the country. Now, Brian Kelly, for the first time, I mean, when's the last time the LSU was a preseason favorite over Alabama? Like they should be this season. Is it back around my time, like 2012?
Feels like it.
Probably like right after I got out of school sometime. They were still kind of balanced. It's about a decade, we could say, pretty safely. And so now, going into year 2, for the first time about a decade, it looks like LSU could be favored over Bama. The bigger question is, though, Jake, can LSU, if they did get past Bama, can they hang with Georgia? Are they on that level yet? Because you are not getting to the national championship without having to get through Georgia, unless you're perfect everywhere else, which I still find a bit hard to ever bank on or believe or expect. And Georgia just remains, to me, a pretty fascinating mixture of old school and new, where like those old Alabama teams of the early Nick Saban Bama era, they are dominant on the defensive lines and the offensive lines, like scary good physically, but they are much more explosive and creative offensively. Now, they didn't go fully down the offensive revolution path like Alabama did, right? They've kept it a bit more old school, more power concepts.
New coordinator.
Mixed in.
New coordinator there,
we'll
which
see
is
what happens.
massive.
No, I know. Look, and the thing with Georgia this year is that we're not going to know until the playoffs because they don't play anybody. And so the stats could look great, but the whole reason why Monken and Stetson were so amazing is because when it mattered most against ranked teams in the playoffs, those two were unstoppable. 4 MVPs for Stetson Bennett in his 4 playoff games that he played in his career. So it's like, okay, yeah, you'll be able to beat, Georgia State and everybody else in your schedule. But what happens when you run up against Ohio State? Can you be as good as they've been in the past? And I guess because there's a very interesting quote from Brian Kelly where he's talking about this, and he basically says, look at the SEC championship, right? We did enough offensively, and then to paraphrase, he's basically said, but we couldn't hang in the line. And I wonder, are you now at a point this year where you can hang on the line of scrimmage? And that's tough to say, given that normally takes years to build up. But you get Mason Smith back, get the entire offensive line returning. You're better. I don't know if you're on that level yet.
Yeah, you have 2 freshmen that started a year ago. You feel like they'll be in a better position, even though they were really good a year ago. So it's certainly a conversation to have. Georgia's not going to play anybody. You're not going to know. Do we think they're going to be damn good? We do. But you're not going to know who the quarterback is. Losing Todd Monken is massive to me. Bobo's somebody that he has not shined his last couple of attempts in the SEC. Is this a different team he is taking over? Yeah, it certainly is. But this is an old school offensive coordinator. We'll see if his schemes and everything that he's drawing up is going to work in today's SEC and certainly in the college football playoff. But, I mean, there's question marks there. It's not the team that it was a year ago. We don't know a lot about this Georgia team. So the conversation is going to be about them because of that schedule, because of how Kirby's recruited. But they do have some new pieces that we don't know if they're going to work out like they have the last couple of years. Right now, only a couple of sports books have full odds on it, but I saw this on FanDuel. The Georgia Bulldogs plus 220 to win a national championship. That's pretty low. I mean, 220 to win it all this far out. That's Alabama plus 500. Ohio State plus 700. So the 3 teams that we talked about that have quarterback questions right now. The top 3 teams as far as odds. Michigan at plus 1,000. USC, your boys, plus 1,600, and LSU plus 1,800. So LSU has the 6th best odds to win a national championship.
In terms of a flyer out of that group, I think I'm kind of feeling Michigan. Not that I think they're going to win, but I feel like for me they're the right mixture of value, and I think they can actually get it done. Now, certainly LSU's interesting at plus 1,800, but that would be a homer pick. And again, I don't know if they're quite on that level yet. You've had Michigan beat Ohio State back-to-back years. They have their quarterback situation figured out. J.J. McCarthy got much better as the year went on last season. They got everybody returning, basically. Who would you choose out of the list? I mean, you could always just go Georgia because of the odds-on favorite, but plus 200 just is enough value for me to want to make that bet.
You know who's interesting here is TCU at plus 10,000.
No, dude, there's no way, dude. You've let your Sonny Dyke, you're diking one Sonny too far.
No, I don't think so. I think you're closing your mind to TCU. Remember the quarterback that beat Max Duggan out, Chandler Morris, who got hurt, is back fully healthy, right? And you get some of your offensive weapons back. Now you lose a top receiver, but it's just interesting that a team that does return a lot is plus 10,000 that played in the national championship game. Now it's a long shot because we saw how it played out in that national championship game. But
65-7,
they're behind. Large. They beat the Michigan team you're talking about.
I know.
So I mean, it's not that crazy. Wisconsin's in front of them. A&M's in front of them. Utah, get that. Oklahoma, who seems so far away from getting back on track. Here's the pick, though. If you're asking me, I just thought TCU plus 10,000 was funny because they played the championship game. I agree with you.
They shouldn't be behind those other teams.
Here's my actual pick, though. If we're taking LSU off the board, no homer picks here. Washington at plus 3,000.
I love that. I've said it 2 months ago. This year, I'm no longer petite Trojan boy.
Good, thank God.
I'm a little Husky man, and I'm honoring my youth when I used to wear Husky jeans. I'm now bringing it back. That's what I'm saying. So we have to reconnect with our inner child. I saw Jay Glazer on his mental health podcast talking about this. We have to reconnect with our inner child, and we're going to do that by cheering for Michael Penix Jr. and the Washington Huskies and Kalen DeBoer and company. So
I can get behind that.
Yeah,
Danny,
go Dogs.
Danny, did you ever wear Husky jeans?
Husky
jeans, Danny?
No, I did not.
No. Mario?
I did, actually.
No,
okay,
there's no way.
I swear.
I've seen more ass on a snake.
Ask my mom.
And then
there ain't no way.
I literally was a little Husky boy.
Little Husky boys. It's all of us, okay? And it will be all of us once again.
I can appreciate it, though. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe you have it.
Zion definitely grew up in Husky jeans.